Welcome to the FNO InsurTech Podcast, a place where movers and shakers from all points within the insurance ecosystem gather and discuss all things InsurTech. We talk about how technology and innovation are affecting and driving change in the industry. Here are your hosts, Lee Boyd and Rob Beller.
Hey, podcast world, welcome to another exciting episode of FNO InsurTech. We love when we have exciting episodes like we do today. Isn't that right, Lee?
We do. It's very exciting to have our guest on today.
And it's very exciting that you and I are just about on our way to London, England.
We are.
Right?
We're on our way. We've done episodes with guests in London before, in England before, but we've never done a podcast in England. And we are next week. We're doing our very first one. Can't wait for
it. As officials of the Alacrity Solutions Group, for whom we are employed, we are going to see people in London, England, for our work that we do for our day jobs, and it should be very exciting.
It should be very exciting, and I'm excited. I am excited about that one. I'm excited about that podcast. I'm excited about that guest. Today, I'm extremely excited about our guest who is on. The product that this person has, that this company has, I have been a user for a couple of years, and I love it.
You're getting a little bit ahead. Because
I'm sorry.
There's something I have to say before we intro the company.
I apologize.
So Lee Boyd has a very specific job at FNO InsurTech.
You're not going to let this drop, are you?
As all of you regular listeners know, all three of you, okay? He is the smart one. He's the smart one. Lee is he's more of a technical guy. He has a brilliant operational mind. So he comes with the questions and the insights on that level.
Okay.
Other than that,
he does nothing.
Let me phrase it a different way. I've just gone through his entire job description. That's it. Okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's supportive. Lee's supportive, and he's involved.
I show up day after day after day.
If he does, but if we said to Lee, "Hey, Lee, can you get us a guest for our next episode?" Then no, that's not in his job description.
I will say yes and probably not follow through with it.
However, there are those times when Lee Boyd, believe this or not, gets really worked up and excited about something.
I do.
Something that is very exciting to him.
That is correct.
And so when that happens, and out of 250 episodes, we've been thinking, and we think this is the second time it's happened.
Okay, I think it's a lot more. And after this podcast, we're looking at you think it's two.
It's the second time it's happened.
See, double digits.
Alicia and I, that's where we spend our time finding guests and haranguing and bothering people and wrangling guests. That's something that we do. But our little friend Lee, he shows up. He shows up, brings his A game. But every once in a while, he's like,
I am not the guest finder.
What's it like to do all the work that you guys do? Well, today's episode qualifies. This is a Lee Boyd driven episode.
I think there's some jealousy that I found this guest and you didn't. Is there a little jealousy?
No, I wouldn't use the word jealousy.
You're just upset that I actually found somebody of really good work.
I'm just upset that it's
You're
gone
shocked.
from 1 to 2. You've doubled the number of episodes that you've organized. Congratulations.
You're welcome.
And then he's like, I really want to have on Ting.
That's right. Ting.
And I must have laughed for 45 minutes when he said that the first time, because, Ting is, not, I mean, it's not a household name.
Right. You didn't know.
But I want you to know that after you hear this episode today, you're going to want to know a lot more about this company. Super interesting, super successful.
Yeah.
and solving a really important problem. We have Bob Marshall, the co-founder and CEO of Ting, on with us today.
Yeah, he's a co-founder, CEO of Whisker Labs, and they make Ting. Ting is a IoT device that you plug into your home, and it helps detect electrical fires. It helps to stop fires from happening by alerting Ting itself, by alerting the homeowner, and then actually doing things to help mitigate those fires. It is a fascinating product. I've had it for almost 2 years, and I love it. I've been wanting them on the podcast for the past 2 years, and I ran into Bob at ITC, and I cornered him in the booth and said, "We got a podcast. You got to be on it." He said, "Okay, why not?" And he's here today.
And you'll see, this is a wonderful episode. You're really going to like it. And I want you to listen carefully that, yes, they sell a product called Ting that does a very specific thing, but the service that's wrapped around it is really remarkable. And the data that's driven out of it and what they can do with it, stunning, amazing, great stuff. Mm-hmm. Lee and I were talking that this is an old school episode for us because it takes us back to IoT, where we haven't been in a while,
right?
And about just straight up InsurTech products that make sense.
Yeah, it's a great episode. Let's jump in.
So without further ado, get ready for an exciting episode with Bob Marshall, co-founder and CEO at Ting. Hey, everybody. We are here with a special guest. Lee is having a I'm in love.
I'm excited.
Lee's beyond excited. This is an episode that we've been trying to have for a long time, right?
Yeah, I've been trying. I don't know what Bob knows, but yes, we've been trying for a long time.
Lee has many jobs at FNO InsurTech Podcast. One of them is not getting guest finder. He's not a guest finder, but this is the exception. So just before we even get started, we have with us today Bob Marshall, who is the co-founder and CEO of Whisker Labs, and their product that you know better than Whisker Labs is Ting, which is a really big deal, and we'll talk about that for a few minutes. But why are you so excited about this, Lee?
Well, I'm excited because this is a device that I've had in my home for over 2 years, and it's a actionable device that I actually use on a weekly basis, and I check it out. But I'm excited. I'm excited about all this, and we have Bob here. Bob, welcome.
Lee, great to be here. Rob, great to be here. Looking forward to this. It should be fun.
Yes, we have set the bar very high. So. It'll be a great time.
Yeah, this better be a good interview, Bob. I want you to know right now. You're in trouble.
Big trouble. I've been there before, though.
Welcome to our podcast. It's great to have you here. Lee has honestly been talking about you for a very long time, and he went out of his way at InsurTech Connect this year to kind of hunt you down.
I did. That's very true.
It was a great show at InsurTech Connect.
It was a good one.
And so let's jump in after that strange introduction and talk about Ting. And why don't we start by tell us what is Ting and what do you do at the company?
Yeah, look, I'm one of the co-founders, and just to give you a little bit of background about how we got here, this is the second company that I've had the good fortune to co-found, and I'm an engineer by background, so I'm a technologist, a data guy, and that's really all I've ever done career-wise is connect sensors to the internet and try to get valuable data. And several years ago, my sister-in-law's house, unfortunately experienced a terrible fire. Lost the entire house.
Oh, wow.
Lost a pet.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a fire. They lost everything and very traumatic. And I had never experienced anything like that. And it turned out it was an electrical fire. And at that time, I knew absolutely nothing about electrical fires. But, we did in the prior company have some of the best electromagnetic signal processing engineers on the planet. That's a big mouthful, right?
Yeah, I don't even know what that means, but we'll trust
exactly.
you.
I mean, bunch of geeky engineers that do stuff with electricity.
There you
go. So I challenged them at that time. I said, why can't we take some of our experience and technology and apply them to this problem and try to prevent these electrical fires? When you look them up, there's about 50,000 of them every year in the U.S. That's one every 10 minutes or so.
That's a lot, actually.
Yeah,
I mean, U.S. is a huge place, but 50, like you're saying, it's every few minutes.
And they're often the worst fires. I mean, the most common fire is a kitchen fire, but you're generally in the kitchen and you did something, not very good, and you started a fire, and it doesn't typically result in, a catastrophic loss. Not that any fire is good, but electrical fires, they start, from damaged wires and loose connections. They can be inside the wall. They can be in your electric panel. They can be in the utility meter outside. They can be in devices and heating blankets and things plugged in inside. And you can be, these fires happen when you're asleep or when you're not home.
Yeah.
You don't have to be doing anything, and an electrical fire can ignite. And that's why these are often some of the most catastrophic fires that impact homes. They're often total losses, so they're terrible, first and foremost for the homeowners and the families, and people are killed every year, and lots of, families with devastating impacts. But, for insurers, they're terrible losses too. I mean, it's, not only just the claims that the insurers pay, but the, trying to help their customers deal with the experience, goes way beyond just the dollars that they end up paying out, in a fire claim like that. So anyway, that's why we, started working on the product, and, it turned, it was a super hard technical problem. We won't spend a lot of time talking through the engineering of it all, but it was a really hard problem to solve, and particularly to be able to do it with, one single sensor.
Yeah.
It's just one single plug that you plug in. And that was really the hard part. I mean, if you put 20 of these things in the house, it gets a lot easier, but then the economics would never work, and it's too hard for the customer. And
for those people, I mean, we have the advantage of video, our audience does not, but hold that up again. I mean, I want everybody to understand that this is about the size of a nightlight.
Size of a nightlight.
It looks like the size of a pack of cigarettes. It's about that size, right?
Right. Yeah. So it's just it's a plug. And one of the key things about this, it is an IoT sensor, but it's much more than that. Really, the intelligence of it is in the machine learning and artificial intelligence and the data. The hardware is just a means to an end, right? I mean, the hardware doesn't matter at all. It's all around, that sensor takes 30 million measurements every single second of every single day. So it's a very busy sensor. And we do machine learning on the device. We do, that's connected. Obviously, what's obviously super important is it's a connected sensor. So it's connected to your Wi-Fi and streaming data to our cloud, where we do additional machine learning and AI in the cloud to detect the tiny little electrical signals that would be future electrical fires. So, so we've got to, with one single sensor, monitor the miles and miles of wiring and hundreds of connections throughout a house, a very complex electrical system, and pinpoint the source of where a fire would start that could be, in a basement outlet that nobody's ever down there, but that's where the fire would start. And we need to find it and fix it and prevent that fire from ever igniting.
I mean, that just blows my mind that you can do all of that with this little sensor. I mean, I guess give us a little insight. Don't you have to give secret sauce, of course, but how does it work? I mean, what is it? You're plugged into the grid, but how does it work?
Yeah, that is the secret sauce.
That is the secret sauce, I guess.
Wait, let me get paper and pencil so I can write this down.
But I mean,
no. So basically, what happens is, when what is called arcing, you can think of it like sparking. Arcing is smaller, but these tiny little arcs. So if there's a loose connection or damaged wire, it could be in an outlet, right? I mean, in inside of a wall, very common. And, when there's a loose connection in your outlet, and that's even like the thing you plug in, right? If the prongs are really loose, like that's like a warning sign. Don't use an outlet where the plug will barely stay in the outlet. I mean, that's a fire hazard. I mean, that if you leave something plugged in there and it's loose, it can start to arc. And these little tiny sparks, it creates a signal, an electrical signal that propagates down the wire back to your main electric panel. your main breaker panel, and then little pieces of it bounce out to every other outlet in the house. So no matter where Ting is installed, we're able to detect that arcing that is occurring anywhere in the house. And then, it's amazing what the artificial intelligence does today. Just a quick story. The system learns so fast. So literally starting, like 18 months ago, we started to see a new signal that was clearly arcing, and we didn't know what it was. We just knew it was arcing. And then the first couple times we find it, we had to figure out what circuit it was on. No problem, because if you turn off the breaker panel with the circuit, then the signal goes away. So we know it's on that circuit. And then what's being used on that circuit? Well, there's these crazy new products out there called pet heating blankets. These are heating blankets that, homeowners, you put in your doghouse or in your cat house.
Stop.
That's that, right? Stop. Yes. And they're crazy. They're 120 volts in the outlet, and the animals obviously have claws and things. It's not good. So we detected arcing in the pet heating blanket, but at that 30 million measurements per second that we take, it's got a unique signature. So, so the next time we see that, like, wow, that looks like the pet heating blanket that we had last week. So now, when we, our fire safety team, so, if a customer gets notified of a fire hazard, it's not just a piece of hardware. I mean, Lee, if we detected a problem with your Ting, you would get a app notification, an email, a text, and a phone call from our fire safety team. So you'd talk to one of our engineers that would say, hey, Lee, we're detecting a problem in your home. Here's what we think it is. Here's what we need to do. And if we need to bring in an electrician, we're going to schedule an electrician, and we'll pay for that too. We'll pay for the electrician to come in, to fix this for you. So it's a service. It's a concierge service.
It's a whole service.
Yeah. It's not just a piece of hardware. It's a service. Or else, there would be no product if we just called you and said, hey, Lee, you got a terrible problem. Good luck. I hope you find it.
Yeah. Good luck. You probably have a fire there. So good luck with that.
Yeah. So no, we have to close the loop, and we notify the homeowner. We isolate the source of the problem, and we mitigate it, document it all. So it's just amazing how that works today. But, the technology's cool. But it's in the end, my passion is around delivering a great experience to the customer. And, just preventing the fires and making it a nice, simple experience, which is why have been successful in scaling, is that we try to keep it simple for the homeowner, right? Just plug it in, connect it to Wi-Fi. That's all you got to do. It takes 2 minutes, right?
That service aspect that you just outlined is really, in my opinion, kind of, well, I'm going to say more important, but just as important as as the thing that plugged into the wall. Right.
Absolutely.
And this is a problem in the IoT world for the home, is that you can have a lot of devices, but if they're not helping you to solve the problem, right?
Yeah. If they're just a gadget that's kind of, doing whatever it's doing. No, you got to solve a problem for the customer and solve a meaningful one. Right.
Right. A smoke alarm is an immediate feedback loop, right?
Right. And so Ting does not, I always be sure to say, Ting does not replace smoke alarms.
Right.
Make sure you always keep it's a perfect complement, right? A smoke alarm only tells you that you have an active fire after the fire is started, whereas Ting our job is to prevent the fire from ever making smoke to make the smoke alarm go off, right? So that's what we do every day, but it does not replace them. You have to make sure everybody should always have updated smoke detectors, replace those batteries and all that.
So you talk about it. You talk about AI, and maybe we'll talk a little more about it as well. But I'm thinking about the data here. You're getting data all the way down to the individual home level. So one house, like Lee's house, you have data on Lee's house and what's going on inside of there. But because you have literally hundreds of thousands or millions of these little gizmos out in the real world, you're getting data from all over the place.
All over that grid.
Right.
Yeah, the data, the telematics data, if you want to think of it that way, is just, we always thought it would be valuable one day. Of course, early on when you don't have many sensors, you just don't have that much, but it's incredible today. So we're documenting, We literally are the world's experts when it comes to electrical faults and hazards and fires. I mean, we are detecting and documenting in great detail, what would be the cause of future fires. And obviously, if left alone, they would be the cause of the fires that happen. But after the fact, it's really hard for anybody to really know what happened. I mean, the house just burned down.
Yeah.
It's really hard to figure out after the fact. So, so the data that we have, we're able to document, what homes are higher risk. We're seeing significant geographic dependencies, right? So there's the hazard, it's more, there's more fire hazards per capita, say, in certain states and geographies. And then, Rob, you went there too, or Lee did on the grid. So, you might have seen a bunch of news around the Maui fires from a few months ago now, coming up on the 6-month anniversary, I think, of that terrible fire. But, so one single Ting sensor documents and monitors all the wiring in the home. But when you couple that with hundreds of thousands, soon to be millions of sensors, then we're detecting problems on the electric utility grid that have never been documented before. And I think, for society today, grid resilience is just a huge issue. I mean, Rob, you just said you guys in Northern California are experiencing terrible storms now and lots of grid problems. And so society relies on a safe and reliable and functioning grid. And that grid is getting increasingly stressed as we plug in more stuff, rely more on electricity.
Vehicles.
EVs and solar and batteries and all that stuff. It's incredibly complex. And the grid, and Lee, you're in Texas, right?
Right.
I mean, a couple of years ago or so, you guys had a complete meltdown of your
complete meltdown of the grid.
Right.
Yes.
And it I think 130 people died, and it was billions and billions in losses from frozen pipes and things like that. So the network of Tings is going to help us work with utilities to make the grid more resilient and prevent some of these, kind of catastrophic losses like what happened in Maui and then some of the other things.
So what kind of information does it tell you about the grid? Full disclosure, I know very little about it. I know what it is conceptually, but what can it tell you that becomes actionable or important?
Yeah, so basically when and where problems are occurring on the grid. So, what, if you just take the Maui, which is probably most, in people's minds, anytime a tree limb, and it gets windy, right? So the grid's got to handle wind and rain and everything else. But when it gets windy, trees start touching power lines, or wires start flapping in the wind and touching each other, or a pole will break. Any of those things create giant sparks that can ignite wildfires. And so understanding, when and where you're going to have problems on the grid that could spark catastrophic wildfires, as one example, is super important. Even in Chicago over the summer when they had 105-degree temperatures and, the grid was super stressed. And there were particular areas, small communities that were, on the brink of kind of collapsing. The voltage was, supposed to be 120 volts and it was like 97 volts. Things barely operate, but knowing where the grid is stressed and, the utilities just don't have that kind of high resolution data. You would think they would, right? That's why
you would think they would.
Yeah.
It's their business.
That's their business, right? Right. That is the business. To deliver safe and reliable power. And how do you manage what you don't measure? But they don't have sensors, that do the kind of things that Ting does and the Ting network. So, so when we detect arcing, as an example, and Rob, Northern California, the only thing we'll never know is whether this would have been a catastrophic wildfire, but Ting was detecting arcing. A couple of our sensors were detecting arcing. And when more than one sensor is detecting the arcing, it's not going on in the home, it's occurring on the grid because they're all detecting it at the same time. And this turned out to be a piece of utility equipment that was literally dripping molten metal down to the ground in high threat area of Northern California. But the utilities would never have known had we not notified them that there's a clear arcing problem on your grid That one did not ignite a wildfire. They got there, they found it, they fixed it. But that's the kind of stuff that does cause wildfires.
So that's something that you actually reached out to the electrical company and said, hey, we're noticing this.
Yes.
You better go check. And they checked it out.
They did. And that's been a challenge, I will say.
Of course.
Sometimes they don't listen and they're not anxious to kind of.
Sure. Who the hell are you?
I mean, yeah, who the hell are you? How does that little thing, that little Ting plug thing tell me that there's a problem on my grid? Well, trust me, it does. I mean, and once they understand that, then I think it'll be much better for everybody.
So I want to talk about your customers, which are mostly, from what our understanding is, well, of course, most of your customers are individual homeowners, but it's producing very important data for insurers, for carriers. But are you also doing business with energy providers, electricity providers?
We're just beginning to provide services to the utility providers, but our business model is what you would call B2B2C. So, we don't, you can buy Ting online, so you can go to our website and buy Ting. It's not our business model. I don't encourage people to go do that. You're welcome to do that. But our primary business model is to partner with insurance companies because they obviously have a vested interest. One, it's a great business model to take care of your customers and help protect them. The fact that we prevent claims, in excess of the cost of the service kind of makes it a no-brainer. I mean, it's so our insurance partners, so we've got basically large partnerships in place where our insurance partners offer Ting for free to their customers. They'll just send them an email, as an example, and say, hey, if you want to protect your family and homes from potential electrical fires, click the button. And you click the button and say, I want Ting, and they let us know that, and then we ship it, and the customer installs it. So, our largest customer, State Farm, but State Farm nationwide, Liberty Mutual, Erie, Pure Insurance, several others launching here shortly. So we are, very much focused on partnering with our insurance carriers to solve a super important problem for them, really take the relationship to a different level too. When you think about it from an agent's perspective or the customer, I mean, and obviously you guys deal with claims all the time, and that's awesome. They have to deliver a great experience to customers when they have a problem and have to file a claim, right? Super important. They all focus on that. You all are great partners to them in that. But, if you can proactively work with the customers to help prevent the claim, that's also a great thing, right? And so it's predict and prevent, right? If you can help predict and prevent claims, that's great for everybody.
So your results must be quantifiable because, I mean, I can think of all different kinds of ways that you could measure it. But talk about, you go to a carrier and you say, here's a carrier over here. And I would think that your approach would be per 100,000 homes or whatever the measurement is. There used to be this many electrical fires, but with Ting, we find that it's a much lower number. Is that kind of how you look at it, or talk about that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That is how you do it. Now, the reality is because electrical fires occur roughly in 1 in 2,000 homes every year, the actuaries will want to have a lot of data to draw a conclusion like that, right? To get statistically significant data. But we have that now. I mean, we have 550,000 home years of data. We're in 550,000 homes today. We're adding 50,000 new homes per month to the network. So we're growing super rapidly. But yeah, it is. I mean, what you want to do is deploy the Tings, and what your electrical fire loss experience has been, and then you measure it in the Ting cohort of homes, and it will be lower. One of the amazing things that we've learned over the last several months is that there is a self-selection bias. So, people talk about auto telematics, right? So, when you get an offer from your carrier for them to kind of monitor your driving habits, well, the bad drivers don't typically opt into that, right?
Right.
Only the good ones opt into that.
Only the good ones.
Whereas it's the opposite here. So when a carrier emails you, if you have pre-existing concerns, hey, I'm in a 50-year-old house,
right?
I've had a couple breakers trip, or I've had some flickering lights, or I just don't feel quite right about my electricity. I don't know why, but I got this offer. So the riskiest customers opt in first.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. That's exactly. So at Christmas time, I put out quite a few Christmas lights, and sometimes my breaker might flip, and
Right.
I might accidentally but I get so nervous about what I can't see. And so when I got my email from my insurance company, I said, "That's me. Put me at ease." And you're absolutely right. It was the one I was so nervous about it. I said, "Yes, please tell me if there's a problem." Unlike driving, right? If I'm a bad driver, I'm like, "Get the thing away."
Exactly.
Here, I'm like, I could be a risk. Let me know. That's exactly how it worked.
So that obviously helps the economics too, because we kind of, the program self-selects in the riskiest customers and we make them safe. So, but we didn't know that kind of, going in until you accumulate a lot of data and you see all the stats. I mean, we're saving 15 homes per day now. I mean,
wow.
so that's, we just, I just posted on LinkedIn over the weekend, I think 8,000 families and homes, we just crossed the threshold. So 8,000 times of the 550,000 homes that we're in, we've notified the homeowner that there's a problem. It could start a fire. We need to find it and we need to fix it. And we've done that now 8,000 times. And it's 15. Yeah, thank you. It's 15 per day. And, we have in our Slack channel in the company here, we use Slack a lot, and we have a feedback channel. And literally every day we get 15 or so testimonials from customers that just say, "Oh my gosh, thank you for saving my home and potentially saving our lives." So yeah, it's very gratifying, but it is a ton of work. And the team behind it, the fire safety team, the engineering team, the data science team, our support teams, and everybody, it's a full-on team effort to try to protect our customers.
Yeah, it's remarkable to me. Frequently we'll ask on podcasts, what's the problem that you're solving? And you have a very straightforward problem.
Yeah. No, it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that's where some of our challenges, and there's been a lot of kind of attempts and failures at IoT with insurance, and over the years, and some of a lot of those are around the water.
Yeah,
water is a big, huge category, right? It's bigger than fire. There's more water losses than fire losses. I mean, anybody that can figure out a water solution that scales and helps insurance companies prevent it, great, good for you. But a lot of those things have kind of struggled because, water, if you put a water leak sensor in, it's hard to get customers motivated to want it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you got insurance. It's not like it's going to kill you, right? It's not fun. Nobody wants a water loss.
Right.
I mean, but then activating them, then you got to install like 3 or 4 water pucks or whatever.
And then keep up with them.
And then you got to keep up. The batteries run out. Right. I mean, all that. Right. Exactly. And then, so a lot of those efforts, again, not disparaging any of those, because there's a lot of great technology out there and companies that are focused on this issue, and hopefully somebody figures it out. But they just struggled to kind of get the customer motivated to do what they need to do. Right. And then they ultimately didn't prevent enough losses to make the economics work. And Rob, to your point, and again, I don't think we knew this going in. I mean, we were technology, we were just trying to prevent fires. But it turns out people really do care, right? I mean, they care. They don't want a fire. You have an innate fear of fire, and you don't like electricity. And if this thing, if a simple Ting plug can kind of protect your home and family and prevent the fires, it's not complicated for people to understand.
No, it's like in my house, I have a bunch of smoke alarms, right? In part because when you get a building permit I live in California where everything's ridiculous. And so when you get a building permit in Sacramento and they come and they inspect it when the job is done, they check to make sure that all the rooms that they want a smoke alarm, that you have to have them or they won't clear the permit. And so I don't know how many I have, a bunch. They're not connected to one another, but it's something that I care about, right? Because it's multiple ways that it can help you and save you, literally and dollar wise. And so
that's right.
Same thing here.
No, it is. Yeah. And it's preventing. And again, I should be clear too, that we don't prevent 100%. I always want to make sure, as much as we desire to prevent 100% of electrical fires, we can't prevent them all. We prevent, I think, about 80%. And, we document that. It's all statistically followed. But we strive every day to prevent them all. But there are certain failure modes that we just can't prevent.
So is that to say that you see in the cohorts that you measure, that have your product, that have a Ting inside, an 80% reduction of electrical fires?
Yeah. I mean, the simple math is, we use NFPA data, so the National Fire Protection Association. They're the ones that kind of catalog and monitor all the fires across the country. And there's 50,000 roughly. And that, depending on your denominator, it's about 1 in 2,000 homes. And when we partner with an insurance company, we exchange claim information. So we almost always hear directly from our customers, unfortunately, if there is an electrical fire in their home. But if we don't hear it from our customer, we hear it from our insurance partner. So we basically track the frequency of fires that happen in our customer homes versus the frequency of fires that is documented by the National Fire Protection Association. And that's where you come up with the 80%. And so we've published a couple papers on that, scientific papers with the kind of the independent world leading fire experts and things. So
one of the things I wanted to talk about was that Ting does more than just provide that service and that keeping you safe. You actually help educate the insured or the user along the way. You tell us on Ting whenever there's a power outage, right? Yeah. In my home or in the neighborhood, a brownout. You tell me what a brownout is, but then you send me articles along the way at Christmas time, or even one about electrical outlets when it's time to replace them. I just got that one the other day.
Right.
That's another service that you're providing to the insurance companies. You're not just providing and saying, "Hey, there might be a fire," but we want to do everything we can to prevent even those that we can't detect, right? And that's what it seems like. Is that a mission of yours?
It is, yeah. And I think we're, again, it's pretty fortuitous that, we've got very, very trusted relationships with our customers, right? I mean, they signed up to help protect their family and home, but they pay attention to Ting, right? I mean, we have 8 touches per month, basically. So we send weekly, as weekly emails that you get documenting power outages and surges and brownouts and other things. And then we put tips in each of those things. And then our monthly newsletter. And then on average, customers receive about 3 notifications, real-time notifications for power outages or brownouts. And I think you said you got a community brownout notification the other day.
Yeah, I did.
So each one of those opportunities is an opportunity to engage the customer proactively and help educate them on things that would help, sometimes directly related to electricity, but sometimes we talk about cooking fires and other things and water losses too. I mean, so, we also have been able to contribute. We haven't been able to quantify to preventing water losses too.
I listened to an article or I listened to you talk on this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, anytime water and electricity can mix, it's no good, right?
Yeah.
Water and electricity that's no bueno. So, so if a water heater is failing, when they fail, a lot of times it's a big flood in your basement or wherever your water heater is. I mean, so we detect that element failing before it fails catastrophically. Sump pumps is another good example, right? So sump pumps, if you have a basement sump pump, then, when it's failing, I mean, that means you're going to have a flood in your basement, but we detect the failing sump pump before it fails and prevent a lot of those. And then the third piece is the only other thing we measure besides voltage is temperature. So, so it's just a temperature, but that's a frozen pipe issue, right? So, you guys had the grid meltdown. So an unbelievable story where a customer, and we got a bunch of these, but the one I remember is the customer has a Nest thermostat. So a connected Google Nest thermostat, and they were going away on vacation in the wintertime, maybe going from Minnesota to Florida or something. And they turned their heat on eco. They thought they were turning on eco to save energy while they're gone. Well, they didn't actually turn it on eco. They turned it off.
Oh, dear.
They didn't realize they turned it off. So they turned off their heat in Minnesota in the winter. Well, that means it's going to get really cold.
Oh, yeah.
And you're going to have frozen pipes, and that's a catastrophe. But then we notified him. He said he was unbelievably surprised when Ting notified him that it was cold in his house and they were at risk of frozen pipes. And then he logged onto his Nest app and said, "Oh my gosh, I turned it off instead of on Eco and turned it back on." So, I mean, that's a huge water loss prevented, right?
How did you know it was cold?
Well, we have a temperature sensor in the outlet. So we set a threshold at 42 degrees. If the house is, 42 degrees or lower, then something may be wrong and we let you know.
So what we're talking about is an IoT device that works.
It does. It does just work, which is fortunate. It's simple and it just works.
And because I mean, you plug the damn thing in and kind of forget about it.
Yeah, plug it in.
I do. Yeah. I do. I completely forget. But what you did was, I mean, just by the nature of what it is, the hardest part about IoT is keeping those things alive, keeping those water battery packs. The water sensors, you got to get them every so often. They got to be changed. But by definition of what it is, you always have power to it. And when you don't, that's the problem.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
there's no batteries, there's no maintenance, there's no nothing. I mean, you just plug it in and we'll engage you, provide the notifications and everything. Hopefully you don't hear from something about a fire hazard, but if you do, I mean, we're going to help prevent the fire.
Rob asked me where mine was plugged in. I said, "Rob, I don't even remember where I plugged it in." And then I did. I was like, "Oh yeah, I moved it here." But you plug it in, you forget about it, and you get a weekly update saying, "Oh, things are good."
Yeah, no, simplicity is super key. I mean, it's, if you make it complex for the homeowner, make them do too much work, make them do maintenance, it just doesn't scale.
The very first water IoT device I got from ITC maybe 4 or 5 years ago. It is still in the top of my closet because it was too complicated. It was too hard to even start. Now, they're not around anymore, I don't believe. But, I mean, it was too hard.
You can't underestimate how important that is. I mean, and obviously we kind of take it for granted. But we do, our product teams and development teams, we emphasize every single day making sure, when somebody will have an idea, why don't we just add this? But you know what? I mean, every time you make the user click, then you're adding complexity and somebody's not going to click. And, you just got to minimize, you kind of have that Apple. Now, you can be a fan or not a fan of Apple.
Yeah,
but I mean, they, but they're so myopically focused on making it simple and easy, right? I mean, so.
Because these, I'm holding my phone up, are incredibly complicated devices, right? It does way more than even the three of us know.
Oh,
right.
More.
Oh, yeah.
And so how do you take something that's capable and complex and everything and make it so that a moron like me can even use it, right? It's an incredibly difficult challenge. And I think that this is one of the most interesting things, not just in IoT world, but in technology, period, is that what happens, you talk about being myopic, you go into a product meeting in a company like yours or others, right? And you're in, for example, an office or a virtual office together talking, a bunch of people who know what the hell they're talking about with a product that they know and understand.
Right.
I open it from the box. I'm not in that room.
Right.
I don't know what the hell about any of it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's hard. It's hard for the consumer to be in that seat, for the end consumer. It's also hard for the product team to fully empathize and to pretend, well, what if I didn't know anything?
Right.
Yeah, you have to constantly put yourself in that mindset of the customer.
But the great companies, like them or not, the great companies are good at that.
Well, we are trying to be good at that. I can tell you that. I mean, we get problems and always looking to be better. But I know with our insurance customers, it's not uncommon for our fire safety team to have to talk to a 90-year-old grandmother that is in the house alone, has a fire hazard and doesn't know anything about electricity, and we've got to calmly walk her through,
because that would freak somebody out.
Yes.
Right.
And we get great marks on that. I mean, we train, we work. I mean, but it's, we've got to, as you said, there's the customers often will know nothing about electricity. And, to hear that your home may catch fire, can be a frightening thing. right? I mean, and but we're here to help and make sure we solve that before something bad happens.
I have to ask you this because I live in an 85-year-old home.
Yeah.
Do you find that old homes are more likely to have problems than newer homes?
We do. Yes.
That's intuitive, but is that what
it
you
is
find?
intuitive, and we see that in the self-selection sometimes. But I will tell you, it's not necessarily as great as you might think, and it actually goes the other way. At some, we document this, by age of home built now, and can't speak to yours, but a lot of when you get to 85 years old, the home, those electrical systems have had a lot of work done to them, so they actually may be quite a bit better than the homes that are like 50 years old because they haven't been touched yet.
Right.
And the other thing that we found that we didn't know coming in is that half of the hazards that we find are in devices plugged in. And that has almost nothing to do with the age of the home because you're replacing your microwaves and TVs and laptops.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So half of the problems we find are defective or failing devices or appliances, and that has little to do with home age. So,
I see.
Yeah.
So actually, like a old heated blanket would be something. You don't associate that with the home, the age of the home.
We know what the age of the home was, but basically the blankets get replaced every 10 years or so. So every 10 or 20 years or whatever the life, those things don't last 50 years.
Right.
So, so when we see hazards like that, so, the bottom line is every home has electrical fire hazard risks. It does skew to some degree to older homes just because the wiring and panels and outlets, they don't improve with age, just like us. As much as we want to, we generally don't improve with age, right?
Yeah, Lee.
I'm speaking for myself, not you. So, okay.
I'm all sad now. Well, I mean, you're not that old of a company.
September 2017.
17.
When we spun off the new company from the old company. Yeah.
Well, in the insurtech world, you're a middle-aged company.
Yeah,
So,
it took us a while to figure out the tech and get it right, and and to get the data we needed to document it all took time, and but it is 50,000 homes a month is kind of crazy. The train's going really fast, and we're hiring a lot of people, and so.
How big is Ting today? How many employees?
Wise, 100 employees now.
Wow,
that's great.
Okay, that's a lot, man.
A little over double from this time last year, I would think, and we'll be 200 by the end of this year.
Venture backed?
We are venture backed, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So venture backed. And,
I think some prominent investors in the insurtech world.
Yeah. So we do have State Farm as a small investor, but our venture-backed companies, HarborVest, Polaris, are. So I've had the good fortune to have just fantastic investors, super smart people that focus on the customer too. They obviously the numbers are important and everything, but they want to solve important problems.
Yeah.
And I think I've had investors that have always had the mindset that if you're solving an important problem, then you should find a way to make that a good business. I mean, sometimes that's not as easy as it seems, but it's if you're solving an important problem, then that's a good start.
When you started, I just before we go, and I know we're towards the end of our time, but I want to ask you a little bit more about working with carriers because mm-hmm. I always think it's interesting when we go and we sell to carriers. We're usually selling a product or a service typically that they're very, very, very familiar with. Yeah. That maybe they're using it from other providers already. You walked in the door offering something that probably no one else had offered yet, right?
Yeah,
and they're like,
yeah.
And you walked out of the room and they all laughed and said, "Can you believe this one?" Right? We thought we'd heard everything. Look at this, right? Now you're having the last laugh, which is awesome. I love that. But
yeah, there was definitely. Well, look, I mean, in fairness, when you have to prove it. There's that show me thing, right? I mean, does it really do what you think it can? And we had to prove it to ourselves too. I mean, it was a hard problem, and the good thing is now we have enough data and history and experience that, that largely we're past that. I mean, but we're still, as I mentioned earlier, there's still a lot of carriers that are dealing with the baggage of failed IoT programs from several years ago. The water thing got really big back in 2017, and those things never really scaled. And, so they're skeptical. I mean, well, why, if that failed, why does this IoT prevention
you get thrown into the same bucket as any device, right?
Yeah, that's right. But I think we're getting past that a little bit now, just because the data has become so clear and the scale is clear, and the customer feedback ultimately, our carriers know we're an extension of their brand. I mean, if we ever delivered a bad, experience, then, they would, even if the tech worked, they'd want nothing to do with it. So we pride ourselves on really working hard to deliver a great experience. Forget the tech. I mean, but just to deliver a great experience for the homeowner and make sure we do that right as well.
Well, we're big fans. Lee has a complete total, I was going to say man crush, but really it's a product crush.
It's a software crush. Yeah.
It's not.
I have told more people about this little device and recommended it just because it puts you at ease. Right. It just puts you at ease.
Yep. No. Peace of mind is an important thing. And we work hard to deliver that. So.
Well, we wish you all the best. And obviously you guys are on a great roll, and that's really exciting. I mean, and this episode is really the kind of thing that we love to have, which is a unique idea, solving a real problem successfully. Right. And so, like Lee said, we've been sent various and sundry IoT devices through the years. Most of them are sitting in the top of our closet, right?
Yeah.
But yours is actually sitting where it should be, and that's in an outlet in Lee's house.
Plugged right in. Well, I'm actually monitored it the entire time here, and it stayed within the lines. And I feel good about it.
Well, very good. Well, it's fun to be here today, guys.
Well, it was great. Thank you for being on.
And we'll stay in touch and hear from you down the road. I'm sure that there's more fun things coming.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Lee.
You know what's cool about that episode is that was like an old school episode.
It was an old school. That's exactly what I thought when it was time to have. I was like, this is like an old school episode, year one. Mm-hmm. IoT.
Uh-huh. Tell us what you do, what the problem, what do you solve? How does it work?
Are you a technology No, it was a really fun episode to be able to go back to think about those. But it's interesting. We don't have a lot of IoT devices on anymore.
No.
Right?
I can't think of the last one. And it seems like IoT devices, on the one hand, migrated into home security.
Yeah, they did.
Right?
They did. There's a lot of that.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking why. Yeah. Anyway, but that was a great episode. I was very excited to get to talk about Ting and to be able to bring them on. I have had their service for a couple of years now, and I'm glad to introduce them to you, Rob.
Well, it's about time that you brought a guest to our podcast.
I know. I don't even know if I do one a year.
250 episodes. This is Lee's second guest that he's brought.
I bet I brought more than that.
Thanks, Lee, twice. Wow.
I wanted a few other songs we got.
Cody Eddings.
Oh, I don't want to go down the list.
Ting.
I don't want to go down the list. There's others.
Yeah.
There's actually other IoT.
We have time for you to go down the list.
There are other IoT devices that I brought because I was really into IoT devices. And it normally went this way. Who's our guest today? Oh, I found this person. And you would say, oh, okay. And then after the interview, you'd be like, oh, that was a really good episode. I'm glad I found that person. And I say, yeah, Rob, you did good. That's normally how it works. That's our little dance. That's our little dance.
I have to put up with.
I'm just saying, I won today. I won.
No, I don't think so.
It was me. It was all me.
Just saying that you won doesn't mean you won.
Well, no one's saying I didn't win. I won.
You can't just say, "Oh, look at me, I won." No,
I won.
You have to. There has to be a validation to it.
I won. I validate.
I'll tell you what. You bring 10 episodes, okay? And then we'll judge it.
Well, I will go back and I'm going to count how many I brought. And I bet all the good ones you're going to say, no,
it's a good thing that you have 5 fingers on one hand because you won't need them all.
What if there's a bad episode I brought? I wouldn't take ownership of that.
Need them all. Well, listen, you don't have to listen to our bickering, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm sure you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. And Lee and I, we're taking a big trip next week. We're going to London.
We're taking the podcast.
London. We're taking the podcast. We're doing a podcast in London, England. So watch for that. And thanks for being with us. Thanks, Alicia and Al, for all you do. And thanks to you, the audience, for putting up with us again. And so until next time.
Goodbye, everybody.